Do you think that Harry and Meghan changed the royal family dramatically? Remember, Meghan was only here for 3 years. Do you think they've had a transformative impact on the royal family, or are they just carrying on as normal and, you know, stoically just getting on with the job?
No, I think Meghan and Harry have had a hugely negative impact on the royal family. I think the damage is everlasting and continues. And I think that the tragedy is that they tried terribly hard to help Meghan. After all, Charles escorted her into the wedding in St George's Chapel. The Queen assigned over half a dozen people to look after Meghan, try and help her get into the ways of the royal family. But they could never win. We know now in hindsight that Meghan never really intended to stay. Her guest list to her wedding showed her real ambition was to be a star in California. And Harry's friends were excluded from the guest list in the evening, from the dinner. So we know that the agenda was something which the royal family could never really get to grips with. And that's why their reaction, once the assault came through the Oprah Winfrey and through Netflix interviews, was lame and self-defeating. They should have been far more aggressive in their response to assert their own credibility.
It's really interesting. I remember, you know, reporting on it at the time and trying to get a sense of the atmosphere. And I think there was shock more than anything. I think there was almost a paralysis, particularly after Oprah. They didn't do anything until 24 hours later because it came out in America overnight. And they said, well, we're going to wait till it appears on, I think it was ITV on the Monday evening, and then we will react. There was like a collective kind of palace, deep intake of breath. It was like, what on earth are we dealing with here? But it's 3 years on now, or 4 years on now. I mean, do you think we've got over the Harry and Meghan show in the UK? Do you think we've moved on?
No, because after that was the publication of Spare, Harry's biography, which peddled even more lies and more trouble, and was, of course, again, a worldwide bestseller, because until then, the world was fascinated that two royals could be so disloyal and treacherous. They'd never had that in their lifetimes before. I think there's a waning interest in them now. People are beginning to see the truth, which I exposed 2 years ago in my book, Revenge. I mean, the truth about them is they are narcissistic and intent on self-glorification to profit from their notoriety.
All right, let's start with Meghan's wedding, because according to Tom Bauer, that's where the first red flags showed up. Now, you would think that if someone was marrying into the most famous monarchy in the world, they would make sure to honor royal traditions, respect the family, and include key figures in their special day, right? Instead of inviting key royal allies, Meghan packed her wedding with Hollywood elites, people she barely knew but who could help her career in California. Meanwhile, Prince Harry's closest friends were excluded from the evening reception. You heard that right. Harry, a man who has had the same tight-knit circle for years, was forced to cut out his closest allies, while Meghan rolled out the red carpet for celebrities like Oprah, George Clooney, and Serena Williams, many of whom she barely had a relationship with at the time. This wasn't a wedding. This was a networking event. It was Meghan's launch party for her next phase in life, a phase that had nothing to do with serving as a royal and everything to do with becoming a global celebrity. Now, let's address one of the biggest lies Meghan and Harry have pushed: that the royal family never supported them. According to Tom Bauer, the royal family went above and beyond to welcome Meghan into the fold. King Charles personally walked her down the aisle after her father backed out. The Queen assigned multiple advisors to guide her transition. Senior royal aides were at her disposal to help her adjust to royal life. And how did she repay them? By stabbing them in the back. Let's be real, folks. If Meghan actually wanted to make things work, she would have worked with the people trying to help her. Instead, she rejected their guidance, isolated herself, and started building her exit plan. She didn't come to the UK to be a princess. She came to build her brand, exploit the title, and then burn the palace down on her way out.
But at the time, no one wanted to believe it. That's always the problem with iconoclasts. They tell the truth, but no one actually wants at the time to believe it could be that bad.
Well, people have heard what they've had to say. So the last 4 or 5 years, you know, through Spare, through Netflix, on Oprah, people have listened to what they have to say, and some, you know, a lot of people their popularity has gone down since they've told their story. We can talk a lot about the past, okay? We can talk a lot about the failures at the palace, or the problems or the mistakes that Harry and Meghan committed or deliberately inflicted on the royal family. Where do they go now? Where, in 4 or 5 years' time, if we're sitting down here talking about Harry and Meghan again, and Thomas Markle, and Harry and Meghan's relationship with the royal family, where are we going to be? What's the future for the Sussexes?
Well, the future for the Sussexes, I think, is pretty grim. I think that they're on a permanent decline. But they will, whenever they need money, whenever they need publicity to stoke their reputation, they'll drop another little bomb. I mean, we're still waiting, of course, for Meghan's own autobiography, which I'm sure she is penning. She is a good writer, and it'll be filled with vitriol and filled with lies. I mean, she will not tell the truth because she wants sensational headlines. That is the ultimate weapon she can deploy. But I just think that the royal family at the moment here in London is a bit sad. I mean, the illnesses, of course, have undermined their attraction, undermined their visibility. And that, of course, what grieves me most is, of course, that pleases Meghan and Harry. They are the epitome of good health. And there's Charles and Camilla and, of course, Kate, all unwell. And that, of course, is a great tragedy for us.
Well, they have been quiet. I mean, I don't remember Meghan saying anything for months and months and months, possibly last year, maybe. I mean, she's been incredibly quiet. Can we give them some kind of credit here? Have they reined in their attacks because they understand that the King and Princess of Wales are seriously unwell?
No, I don't think so at all. I think that she's allowed Harry to make the running. I mean, she is reserving herself for her autobiography. It's much better for her to be seen as the silent princess or duchess, the silent weapon in reserve. I mean, Harry, after all, has said some pretty unfortunate things when he came across and didn't see his father on his way to Nigeria. But Nigeria said it all. The visit to Nigeria, you didn't need words from Meghan to say what it was all about. It was about, we are the royal family in a Commonwealth country, the most important probably in Africa. And that said it all. It was a brilliant coup. Put the British royal family, our royal family, into a very, very difficult position, intentionally so. And that unfortunate occurrence is, again, the palace should never have agreed. They should have lobbied the Nigerians not to allow the Sussexes to come because, of course, they were upstaged in a vitally important Commonwealth country.
After months of scheming, Meghan and Harry dropped one of the most damaging royal interviews in history. They accused the royal family of racism, mistreatment, and neglect, without presenting a single shred of evidence. But here's where the royal family made a huge mistake. They didn't fight back hard enough. Tom Bower says that the palace was paralyzed after the interview aired. Instead of coming out strong and refuting the lies immediately, they waited 24 hours before issuing the now famous Recollections May Vary statement. Now don't get me wrong. That line was a great British understatement. But let's be honest, it wasn't enough. When someone publicly accuses you of racism, of institutional abuse, of mistreating a pregnant woman, you don't wait a day to respond. You immediately go on the offensive. And because the palace was too slow to react, Meghan and Harry controlled the narrative for months. This is why the monarchy needs to wake up. If you let liars take control of the story, they will destroy everything you stand for. Now, if Meghan's wedding was the first clue and the Oprah interview was the dagger, then Spare was the nuclear bomb. This book wasn't just a tell-all. It was a full-blown character assassination of his own family. The answer? A man who has been completely brainwashed by Meghan Markle.
So spinning it forward, are you concerned? Because I'm led to believe that they will do more of these trips. You know, this suited them because I was at the Invictus Games last September and the Nigerian Defence Minister turned up. And he sat at the front with Harry and Meghan. I think this is where it all started, their trip to Nigeria, because Meghan had said she was a certain percentage Nigerian heritage. What are the pitfalls that they could fall in? Or what's the problems they can cause to the royal family if they end up having more royal tours around the world?
Well, of course they will, as the royal family, because of Charles's and Kate's illnesses, are unable to travel as much as they would like, or travel at all. The presence of Meghan and Harry in Commonwealth countries will be absolutely damaging to the royal family. And that, of course, is a serious problem because, after all, Anne can't travel and, William rightly feels he should be with his own children and wife. So it's very difficult. The only question is whether the British Foreign Office and number 10 can persuade Commonwealth countries not to host Meghan and Harry because it's damaging.
In what way is it damaging, Tom?
Well, it's damaging because they appear as royals. They appear as representatives of the British royal family, and they're
like a
not.
rival royal court. So
Exactly, and they're not. They are doing it for their own self-promotion, to profit from their association with the royal family, the same royal family who they deserted and have humiliated and have damaged. And that's the problem, that Meghan delights in this. But what's interesting is that she's really so unpopular. Despite her unpopularity in America now, and obviously in England, she still manages always to create, understandably, a furor when she travels. And that is her intention, because she loves the spotlight. Everything is geared to her self-promotion.
And here's where Tom Bower nails it. He says the world is finally seeing the truth about Harry and Meghan. People are waking up to the lies, the manipulation, and the calculated attacks on the monarchy. Because at the end of the day, this was never about justice, racism, or mental health. This was about power, money, and ego. Well, as Tom Bower points out, interest in Meghan and Harry is fading. People are tired of the drama.
Well, the self-promotion was always going to be the problem. So, when the late Queen signed off on the Megxit agreement, it was that they couldn't use the royal titles to make themselves money. They couldn't use HRH. They couldn't use Sussex Royal. That was the key. The key settlement, part of the settlement that really stopped them from doing what they wanted to do. Do you feel, therefore, that they are pushing the boundaries and that maybe, they are overstepping the line and maybe the King needs to step in again?
Well, I think there are two things there. First of all, the problem is that they betrayed. They actually, in the end, ignored the agreement that they settled on, because allegedly they were going to California for privacy and to leave the royal family, and they've done the exact opposite. But I think part of the problem has been the weakness of the King. He should never have agreed for their children to get royal titles after the Queen's death. And he should have stripped them of their titles and actually made a declaration that they're no longer representatives or members of the royal family.
Meghan and Harry thought they could build a media empire on royal scandal. But now that people see through them, they're struggling to stay relevant. Meanwhile, King Charles and Prince William are rebuilding the monarchy, focusing on duty, tradition, and service. Everything Meghan and Harry never cared about. So let me ask you, is this the end of the Sussex saga? Or will they find another way to stay in the headlines? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.